way I'm going. There ain't got no way, I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No. There ain't got no way, I'm gonna make.
Date, and they'll be doing a part 2 in anxiety in the church or anxiety in the household of God. So we're looking forward to that. I know our producer is all armed and ready and willing and able to go. But that's not important just right now. What's important is that we have our guest in the house, and I will ask Gabriella to do the honors as I see her ready and able and willing to go. Welcome, Kelline.
Good afternoon, Kelline. So, Kelline Theophille is a dynamic emotional intelligence coach, entrepreneur, speaker, and author dedicated to helping individuals and organizations transform their mindset, enhance self awareness, and cultivate personal and professional success. With a background as a lecturer and a guidance counselor, she has a passion for equipping people with the tools to navigate emotions effectively. She's the author of Going Through Their Background, Strategies to Overcoming Fear, a powerful resource designed to help individuals break through limitations and step into confidence. As the founder of Promise Jazz by Kell, she creates innovative tools to inspire and empower, while her company, Kelline Theophille Coaching Services, offers the Live a Life You Love coaching program. This structured 6-week experience helps participants manage their thoughts and emotions, enabling them to shift from surviving to striving. Kelline is highly sought after for emotional intelligence training, delivering corporate seminars, executive coaching, and keynote addresses that enhance leadership communication and workplace culture. She is also the creator of the Yellow Paper Project, a program designed to equip secondary students with critical emotional intelligence skills for both personal and academic success. So without further ado, let's welcome our passionate, insightful, and engaging Kelline Theophille.
Wow, what an introduction.
Yes. So many hats.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So I'm going to just take the first bite of the cherry. Welcome, Kelline, and we are happy to have you. We appreciate you, and we thank you for taking the time to be with us here
Yes.
on Breaking Out of Depression. In a nutshell, tell us what you think truly defines the term emotional intelligence. Let's begin with that so that off the bat, people begin to understand what we're going to get to as far as the main topic is concerned.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence really is very simple, and in the easiest and simplest way I can define it as, it is your ability to be aware and understand your emotions as well as the emotions of other people. So in large, it really is a people skill. I heard the creator of emotional intelligence explain it like that is Daniel Goleman. He said it really is a people skill, being able to understand yourself and understand people so that your life can actually thrive. So emotional intelligence, are you aware of how you use your emotions, the way that you even emote, and how does that impact your life as well as the people around you?
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Colleen. How would you describe challenges that people would have in understanding and embracing the reality of emotional intelligence?
So I can tell you for certain in a Caribbean context,
Yes.
and from and from experience, when people hear the word emotional intelligence, a lot of times the challenge with them is, why is it even something necessary to talk about?
Mm, yes.
So oftentimes, of course, we talk about your IQ, so your intelligence quotient, where of course we want to know how bright you are, in the Caribbean. So once you start saying words like emotion and intelligence, our first response sometimes is emotions is for soft people, and emotions is not something that we need to talk about. And so the challenge is because we are still heading towards accepting and embracing the magnitude of what it plays in our life, people have a hard time even thinking it is something that is necessary to talk about. So that's one of the greatest challenges that I had to overcome when I came into the field of emotional intelligence. In fact, why does Sister Gail want to talk about feelings when we know the best thing that you could do is ignore it because it's not that important, you know? So
Right,
that
right.
has been a major challenge, and it still is a challenge, depending on the areas that you step into, for people embracing the concept of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so taking that into consideration, Kelline, what are some of the things that you have done, some of the techniques, some of the talks that you have done, workshops even, to help people to understand how important it is to embrace the idea of emotional intelligence? And it is not something that they should be fearful or skeptical about, but something that they should rather embrace.
Yeah. So from individual perspective, because I do it, is a very tiered, a tiered system. So from the individual level, I have done a lot of
Mm,
seminars on identity,
yeah,
and self-worth, because that really is where emotional intelligence starts. If you are unable to even understand yourself, even come to terms with who you are as an individual, then all of
yeah.
this will not make sense. So
Wow.
I've had to do a lot of seminars and sessions on um, understanding and even discovering your identity, and
Mm,
that opened the door for me now to do a lot of seminars on understanding our purpose. So a lot of individuals, a lot of clients that I have, when they come to me, a lot of them use words like stuck, stagnant, autopilot. And so we have a case where people are not certain what their purpose is, which is again an emotional intelligence issue. And so now I've had to do a lot of seminars and even coaching clients along that line of how do I practically discover what my purpose is, and then what does it look like as I head in that direction. So that's on the individual level.
uh-huh.
On the corporate and organizational level, that's where the drama starts. Because once you introduce people into your space, we're now talking about the fourth pillar of emotional intelligence, which is really relational intelligence. That's social interpersonal interactions. So at this point, I've done stress management a lot. So a lot of corporate companies want to teach their employees how to manage stress, because we know that working in different spaces is stressful, and we understand that once stress is not managed, then you lower the productivity of your company. So anything to do with stress, I've done a lot on conflict management, because again,
Yes,
once
yes.
people come into play, we're gonna have that little conflict there. And then I've also done a lot of team building, where now companies are starting to realize that your employees are humans, and if they are
Hmm.
unable to get along and find some kind of rhythm with each other, it is going to slow down your productivity. So now there are a lot of companies who their drive is towards making a team that gels so that they could increase the productivity. So that's just a few of them. I recently had one that was very, very interesting, where I had to do a series of seminars on overthinking was one of them, and offense. And I was like, that is interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was interesting because it was the first time I felt like a church space wanted to actually focus on something that we suffer with a lot, which
Yeah.
is the spirit of offense. So I was
Mm.
actually really relieved to be brought in to do some training on offense and the overthinking that comes with offense. So yeah.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. You know, as you say all of that, and I felt like it was really clinical. So hats off to you, Kelly, well done. I'm thinking for a born again Christian, someone who knows Christ,
Mm-hmm.
how important it is for them to embrace those ideas, and particularly when we're looking at those last two things you spoke about, that conflict scenario and that overthinking scenario.
Mm-hmm.
How can we bridge that gap? Because I think for many of us in Christianity, we feel as though we don't need to really go down that road per
That's
se.
right.
But
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on it?
So, interesting enough, right now I am reading a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality.
Wow.
And the
Yes.
person, the author is Peter Scolaro. And what he's basically
Uh-huh.
saying is you cannot be spiritually mature if you do not work on emotional health as an individual and as the body of Christ. And
Mm.
so one of the reasons I got into emotional intelligence because I remember God saying to me one time, so I grew up in church.
Yes.
Um, I grew up in church to the fact that I lost my first tooth in church. I bumped into a PY. So I've been in it for 30 plus years. I've grown up in church. And so when you grew up in church the way that I have, you've seen some things. And one of the
Yes.
things that always challenged me was, and I grew up Pentecostal, which therefore means you know how Pentecostals are very
Yes.
spirited.
Yes.
So I would always wonder how come every single Sunday the same people keep coming to the altar for deliverance, but
Yeah.
then nothing seems to change.
Uh-huh.
And so I was always kind of confused. I was like, is it that we're not doing it right? Is it like, what is it? Because I know that my past standpoint, what's going on? And then when I reached the point of maturity, I remember God said to me, is because when we over spiritualize certain things and not realize that He's a very holistic God. And so
Mm.
sometimes we focus only on what we deem spiritual and not understanding renewing your mind is very spiritual and very practical.
Wow.
Learning to manage your emotions is a highly spiritual thing. And so when God brought that to my knowledge, and He was like, and that's why you are going to pursue a young lady, I was like, Lord, that is real trouble you got to put me in. But obedience is
Oh,
always
wow.
better than discomfort.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that is why I went and say part of my story with emotional intelligence was because of the void in church. It was
Mm.
because of the void in church, and I recognize if we truly want to see the glory of God, if we truly want to tap into all that He has, we have to fix this element of it so that we
Right.
are complete when we serve Him. You know? So
Yes.
after you roll on the floor, get up and go to counseling.
Wow.
Understand? Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my
Thank you so
God.
much. On that note, that was an extremely high note. I'm gonna pass you on to Gabriella now for a few more minutes.
Oh my God. Thank you, Kelly. Oh my God. I love how you see this bubbly spirits and she just
Yes.
down to earth
Yes.
and real. We just need some
Yeah.
realness sometimes.
For real.
Kelly, we all had these moments when our emotions override logic, right?
Yeah.
What's happening in the brain during that, that amygdala hijack? And how can we train ourselves to respond instead of react?
So that hijack that you're talking about is really when our brain has perceived a threat. Now you hear the word I say, right?
Perceived, yes.
Perceived a threat. So we take this to mean that, oh my God, something is happening. And then our body kicks in, our mind kicks into what we call our fight, flight, and fright response, right? Now, because of how quick that hijack happens, it doesn't give our prefrontal lobe enough time to reason. The issue with that is that when we do that, a lot of times these things that hijack, they are not real. And it pushes us into mode over something that if we allowed our rationale to kick in, we would realize that we are not in danger. We are okay. We could take a deep breath. Now, one of the ways you fix that hijack, and this is a simplified version of it because, of course, we know it's a very nuanced conversation, is within the act of pausing. But in
Yeah.
order to pause, you have to be self aware enough to know when you're going down the rabbit hole. So, a good step to know is you have to know what your body feels like when that hijack happens. So, you have to know what your body feels like when you are in fight, fright, or flight. So, for example, a good practical example, a way to look at it is does your shoulder tense up? Do you feel the heat rising at the side of your face and you're
Yeah.
ready to so your body picks up quicker than your mind, which is why we're saying it's a hijack, right? You have to know yourself well enough to know that you're being hijacked. So one of the things with me, I know I'm being hijacked when I feel myself start to vibrate. You feel the shake start to come on. I'm aware of that now. So because I'm now aware of it, I am able to now step back from the situation and use what I like to call the pause principle. You push the button pause, you take a deep breath, and now you start to assess the situation. What exactly is going on? So I know the conversation I need to have with myself to talk me down from the hijack. So it really is recognizing that you are under threat, whether it is perceived or not. And because I know what goes on with my body, I'm able to pause and step back and take a breath.
Wow.
Mm.
And that's basically speaking about that first level of that self-awareness, and people who
Yeah.
struggle with being self-aware and struggling with who they are, knowing the triggers, know what they love, what they don't like. How do you help person to really cross that hurdle or reach that stage where they could understand themselves before they could go out into society or to have any relational kind of um, interactions?
So it's not complicated, you know. One of the things that people struggle with is because they have no one to sit with them and get into their head is what they struggle with. So sometimes it's a very simple thing as asking somebody, what you're good at? No. As simple as the question is, I have so many clients that freak out when I ask the question. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, no, take a deep breath. What are you actually good at? And so sometimes 15 minutes, all of us just sit down in silence because we've never been taught to think about ourselves. So one of the things I make sure and do when I am coaching people is I teach them the art of examining themselves. One of the issues that you have, especially in the Caribbean context, we are taught that thinking about ourselves is prideful. We never said to think about ourselves better than anybody, but I have to be able to have such a grasp of my strengths, my weaknesses, what my skills are, so that then I would know how to use it. So I walk people through a very simple conversation, simple, but it is challenging. Because if for 25 plus years you've never thought about what am I actually gifted at? What are my actual weaknesses? What am I bringing to the table? Your brain is going to spaz a little bit.
Yeah.
So very simply, that session, I usually walk them through something I call the ID card game, where you create an ID card of your skills, your strengths, so that you have proof. No, this is who I am on
Yes.
paper, and this is what that looks like. And as simple as it is, it usually is such an enlightening moment for a lot of people. A lot of people have that, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I was all of this. You understand?
Yes.
And so when they have that information, then we now walk through how do I actually use that to go forward in life.
Wow, thank you so much. I love that, the ID card game.
Mm.
Because a lot of times you may ask persons, who am I? And they just freeze, like, who am I?
They do
All they know is that I'm a wife,
that.
I work here, they know the rules and everything, but to dig a little deeper, it's always a struggle. So I
Hmm.
love that ID card vibes.
The
Okay,
funniest
so
question always is when I ask them to name 10 things they love about themselves. That's even worse. Even worse.
wow.
Yeah.
All right. So, as an emotional intelligence coach, what is one of the common mindset blocks that keeps people stuck, and how can they break free from that?
Oh, child, that's layered. So one of the greatest mindset blocks I continuously encounter is people seeing emotions as weak, a sign of weakness. So they come to me saying that, listen, I over emote or I am too emotional, fix me. And in reality, emotions are not something that you fix. And the reason is because we have the wrong definition of what your emotions are. Emotion is simply data. It is information that is telling you what's going on in your head, what you're experiencing and what you're feeling. And so when you come to me with saying you want to fix your emotions, I immediately have to tell them, no, we need to fix what's going on in your head. We need to fix what's going on in your life. We don't need to fix your emotions. As a matter of fact, your emotions might be saving you right now because you're at the point where you realize that something is off because you're feeling
Yes.
all of this. And so now I have information to help go deeper than that. So the biggest misconception or challenge always is people think that they come to me so that I could fix the emotional problem. It's not something that you need to fix. It's something that you have to take it at face value as information and use it to your advantage to enhance your life. So that really is what it is.
Awesome. Yes, you're taking us to school. In your book, let me talk about your book. In your book,
Right.
don't you dare back down. Focusing
Mhm.
on overcoming fear. What's one fear most people don't realize is holding them back?
One? Hmm.
Yeah,
Listen.
Wow.
I reduce it to one. It could be many, but
Yeah,
one.
one.
Select one.
It is so fair, and that's why I wrote a book on fear because fear is, I like to call it the greatest gangster of all emotions. It underpins so much. When people come to me and they give me what I like to call a secondary emotion. I say that is not what you're dealing with. You're dealing with fear. The greatest fear that I've seen recently is that fear of missing out. So let me paint that picture for you. A lot of people are at that point where they have these lists of what their life is supposed to look like. And if in their heads they've not checked that properly, they are completely afraid that they are missing out. The problem with that is because they're striving to catch up with everybody, to be in the know, they're not being true to their authentic self. And so now you have people chasing after things they are not assigned to, things they do not love because they're so afraid to miss out. A really great example recently was I keep dealing with a lot of young people who are getting into what I like to call counterfeit relationships because their brain is doing that at 25 or 26, I have to be married because I'm missing out if I am not in that season of life. And it's a fear of missing out. And so now you're entertaining people who are not yours. You're entertaining people who will not fit what you're called to do. And only because you're afraid to miss out, on what you think is happening and going on and the excitement, you now compromise your authentic self and what you really need for yourself in order to be a part. So recently I've been dealing with a lot of the young people, it's called FOMO, fear of missing out.
For me, yes.
um, yeah, and people trying to now catch up in a way that's really not necessary.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 So we're gonna take a break and we're
Yes.
gonna have a promo video. And after the promo video, we will have some comments that we're gonna read out for Kelline. So promo video, Dex. Thank you.
Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, whether it's emotional struggles, difficult decisions, or simply feeling stuck. But what if there was a place where you could find not just solutions, but also the tools to create a brighter, more confident future? That's what Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions is here for. Our tagline is mentoring minds, empowering lives. It's more than just words, it's the heart of what we do. We combine counseling to help you heal and process life difficulties with mentorship that offers practical guidance for your personal growth and future success. It's about building strength for today and clarity for tomorrow. We also understand that everyone's journey is different. That's why we offer both secular counseling and faith-based counseling grounded in Christian principles for those who desire a spiritual foundation in their healing process. No matter your preference, we meet you where you are. At Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions, mental health is our priority because we know it's the foundation for everything else. Whether you're navigating personal challenges, seeking direction in your career, or striving to build emotional resilience, we are here to help you strive. Solutions, healing, and a future filled with purpose. That's what you'll find at Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions. Visit us today at www.gabriellasdoubleimpact.com to start your journey because we are mentoring minds, empowering lives. Let's grow together.
Okay, wonderful. So we have some thoughts and comments that we must share with our audience. Beginning with Trishi Lou, and she says, first of all, I love this. Great. We thank you so much for that. And then she went on to say, self awareness is one of the components of emotional intelligence. So true. And then our producer quoted a scripture for us. It's from 2 Corinthians 13, 5-7. It says, examine yourselves whether you be in the faith, prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. Wow, that was kind of harsh. But I trust that ye shall know that we are not reprobates. Comforting. And there's a final comment from Trishi Lou. She says, we can't fix emotions, we can learn to regulate. Woo. Okay, great. So the professionals in the house, and we'll ask you to respond to some of the comments there. Kelline, what are your thoughts?
Can't fix emotions. You can learn to regulate them. I really like how she summed that up really nicely. Because it's the truth, right? It is not about fixing it. It's not about learning to manage it. It's about understanding that you are in control, never your emotions. the biggest and most
Wonderful.
important thing that
All
you are
right.
in control.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get into something that really drew my attention on your profile. It says, live a life you love, and it's a coaching program,
Yes.
and it's structured 6-week experience that helps participants to manage their thoughts and emotions, enabling them to shift from surviving to thriving. You see that last four words there, from
Yes.
surviving to thriving? That
Hmm.
fascinates me.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So the name of the program is Live a Life You Love. And it actually is from that scripture verse that says that we are meant to have life and have it
Hmm.
more
More
abundantly.
abundantly. All right.
And so one of the things that I am tasked to teach people is that we were never intended to just survive and exist through life. When we do that, we are living below what our intention was. And so many people settle for less than what you can actually have. And so the reason I am doing that is because I want people to live abundantly. Why have a promise and you don't access it? And so that is why it is about not just surviving, but thriving, turning off the autopilot and now being everything that you've been called to be. I remember once my mother-in-law gave me the example. She said, imagine you have $1 million sitting in your bank account and you have use for the money, but your brain does I have the money, but I don't want to access it. And so instead, you go and beg somebody for the money to help as opposed to accessing what you actually have. And it really is what a lot of us do, where we have access to so much, but
Yeah.
we prefer sometimes to survive than access what is necessary to help us thrive. And
Ooh,
one of the
that's
tools to help us thrive to bridge the gap from
yes.
surviving to thriving is
Uh-huh.
mastering your emotions and your thoughts.
Wow. That's powerful. That
Yeah.
Yes.
is powerful. That's like a steamroller. So we have a video that's gonna help us understand maybe a little bit more what Kelline is saying. And I asked our producer to cue it, and let's see if he can run it at this time. We'll have comments from Kelline after. Give me a minute. Okay, so he says give him a minute. All right. So in terms of the process that you just spoke about, how have you found people responding to that program?
I have to say, if you ever set out to do something and know this was the intention and get surprised still by people's response.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
So
yes.
I know I was going to start it because it was something that I strongly believe in. I am still surprised of how people are responding to it.
Okay, okay.
Um, I've had clients who have seen the evidence of their life turning around because of it. And it's not simply because I'm good at my job. It really was because people just needed a safe space to help
Mm.
them get into their heads and navigate it. So I've seen how people have been committed to wanting to live a life that is abundant. And every day I'm humbled and grateful for it. Interesting enough, because I think when I started off, I expected it to be younger people, so that millennial ages, because of course sometimes when you think you know something, you say, well, right, the older folks not going to be interested in this because all our life they tell us, well, emotions is nonsense, blah, blah, blah. But I've had several clients who were over the age of 60, people who were willing to really, it didn't matter. I mean, 60 is young, right?
Yes.
But of course, comparative to a 30 plus year old,
Hmm.
it's still parity.
Yes.
So I've had several clients who were over that 60 bracket who were so willing and so humble to learn something new. And that really blessed me. It really gave me hope that people are catching on to the fact that you can be more. I'm
Yeah.
willing to learn the tools, the emotional tools necessary for me to be different. So it has been a fantastic experience over the past 2 or 3 years. Being able to sit with people one on one. I am afraid that I have to admit that one part of my personality is that I adopt you very easily. a lot of clients have now become good friends and people who I now appreciate deeply because of that time we spent together. It's an intense 6 weeks, I'm not even going to lie. There have been times I've got messages where I don't like you, and I'm like, that's okay, do my homework. You don't need to like me, just
Mm,
do what I tell you to do.
yeah, yeah.
It's been a good time.
All right. All right.
Awesome.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. So I hope we have that video up and running, after which we'll get the thought of the week. But this video, I think, is important to interject on what Kelline is focusing now at this point in time. Okay, if it isn't running as yet, I'm just gonna ask Kelline offbeat, how is Mr. Dominic doing?
My daddy,
Yes, your
he's
dad, your
good.
dad, your dad.
Yeah, he's good. He's a first time grandpa and having the time of his life.
Woo, man.
Yeah, so
I have,
Wow.
he's good.
I have to
He's
drop
good.
him a line. I have to drop him a line. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's fantastic. You see me and you see my daddy. I'll be honest. I am who I am,
I
largely part of the influence of my daddy.
Daddies just
Right.
play a big role.
Yeah, and I mean he bats in this arena very strongly, and it's funny how we impact our children, the influence we have they have on us. And so sometimes he isn't even aware that I am this because I've seen him on stages and see
uh-huh.
him dealing with people and speaking nice into people.
Yes.
Yeah, I am a product. Don't mind you, my mother played a role. The role was different. But in terms of this, because that's what he does. So,
Okay.
it's a big and big part. Yeah.
All right. So the video is ready. Let's take it in and we'll have comments after.
Very cool mentors. The most important thing to know about this category of people is that this relationship is based on information and not intimacy. The whole purpose of having a mentor is somebody who has had more experience than you in a particular area, and they're there to help you grow and develop. Mentorship, I think, is really crucial to us going different places and different areas. So if you want to grow in your career, if you want to grow in your social life and your identity, I really always tell people, look for somebody that you look up to, that you admire, who you can get that information from. A mentor isn't always somebody who you might know personally. Sometimes you can get a mentor through a YouTube person who you admire. So you have to know who's accessible to you and what that mentorship needs to look like. Now I want to talk directly to those of you who are mentors or who would like to be mentors. There's three things that I've learned from being a mentor and even having mentors that I think is really important for you to know if you fall into this category. The first thing is, know when your season of mentoring a particular person has come to an end. As mentors, we sometimes adopt our mentees as babies and we want to hold them close, not realizing that there comes a season where you've given them all that you have to offer. You've taught them everything, you've held them accountable, you've steered them in a different direction, and now they're ready to move on in a different way in their lives. You have to be willing to let them go. And so sometimes I see where we hold them close because, of course, it also pours into us. Not only are they babies, but we feel good when we know that we can cater to somebody in this way. You have to know when it's time to let that person go. Does the relationship have to end? No, but the nature of it has to change a little bit to now facilitate the fact that this person has learned and grown. So know when to let go. The second thing is, always remember that your role as a mentor is to guide and not control. I have seen too many times in different ways how mentors think that they have a right to control people's lives. You
Okay,
are there
Dex, we're
to
having
share
some
your skill.
interruptions on
Yes, you
our
are
end.
there in
Okay,
some
okay.
ways to be firm and direct, but that doesn't mean that that person has to now do it your particular way. You're there to share your information.
Okay, we're
You're
gonna
there
have
to
to
tell them
stop
what
the
works
video
for you, but
next.
you all are not the same person. So this
Yeah. Um, I want to get the thought of the week going, and then I want to get comments from Kelline concerning that video. There were some crucial points that I wanted people to hear, because we know that mentorship is something that is being brandied about so much in the world today, and it's a necessity in the process of the philosophy that says It takes a village, and sometimes we don't understand exactly how important it is to really know what true mentorship is and the role that we can play as mentors or mentees as far as our lives are concerned. So let's get the thought of the week, and then we'll get comments on Kelline concerning that mentorship video. The thought of the week: we are the sum total of our thoughts and values, and yet many of us are not happy with who we really are. I wanted to comment on that as well. It's appropriate for the episode. Let me repeat: we are the sum total of our thoughts and values, and yet many of us are not happy with who we really are. Okay, so that's the thought of the week. We'll hear about it again as we wrap up at the end of this episode. But now back to Kelline for comments.
So, you want me to comment on the video first or the thought of the week?
Yes. On the video first, and then the thought of the week.
So, mentorship is something that, from a personal level, changed my life. At every stage of my life, I've had a mentor for different arenas of my life. So, as a teenager, I had a lot of mentors who helped me build my identity. Because, as a teenager, you struggle through the whole self esteem issue. And then when I was about to go into business, I had a business coach. And so at different stages of my life, I've had mentors. Mentors are crucial because you can never diminish the experience that somebody else has and their ability to now help you navigate your space. And so that's why mentorship is so important. It's okay to get help. It is okay to glean the wisdom from those who walk the path. My philosophy is always why I must go through the same trouble if somebody tell me what it is going on. Like, you don't need to tell me twice. If you tell me the fire is going to burn, I believe you that the fire is going to burn. And that's what mentorship does sometimes. Yes, experience is the greatest teacher, but sometimes conversations with people who walk that road is also a fantastic teacher. So I always encourage people to pursue mentorship. Now, understanding mentorship also means knowing the parameters in which it needs to operate. On one end, as a mentor, you are not in control of a person. You're here to share your expertise, not control them. At the same time, a mentee, your role is not to leash off of a person where you suck them dry and take everything that they have to offer. So there's this beautiful dance of boundaries that you need to learn and you need to know. Another important thing that you have to know with mentors is know when your season has ended. Sometimes we like to hold people a bit too close. And we have to know when I've given all that is necessary for this person now to go fly their wings. There's a level of pride sometimes from a mentor of not wanting to release somebody. And we have to know when I've given them all that they can and they have to now go and experience it. So mentorship really is very important because it helps you navigate the world easier. It really, really does. And if I
Yeah.
can't get it easier, why would I not? You understand? I really encourage people to go after mentorship as much as they can.
Wow. Okay. We are in school, really. So your comments on the thought of the week.
That is such an interesting thought. So I think it said you are the sum total of your thoughts and your values, yet people are not happy with who they are. If
Yeah.
you're not happy with you are, that means that your thoughts and your values are flowing. It
Mm.
therefore means that you are not thinking about what you're thinking about, nor
Mm-hmm.
do you have a proper grasp or handle of what you're thinking about. Because if your mind was in a place of renewal or in a place that is settled, then the natural outcome of that is going to be happiness of who you are as a person. So the
Yeah.
issue is not fixing the way I feel about myself. The way is fixing the flow in how you're thinking and aligning your values proper. So a lot of people with that statement, I think, go after I need to go after things that make me happy. No, you need to go after fixing the type of thinker you are, addressing your thought patterns that might be flawed, the value systems that may be abused currently that you're not paying attention to, or that you don't even know you hold. So that's a very interesting statement that I know people try to deal with back to front, when rightfully the core of the issue is fix your mind and your life will follow the suit.
Ah, I love it. Okay, Gabriella, your turn.
Thank you. Let's go. I'm glad that you're talking about the youths because I want to talk about the yellow paper project
Ooh,
that you have. What
yes.
inspired you to create this project, and why did you choose the name Yellow Paper?
So That's a very layered. So let me layered question. So let me condense it.
Yes.
My background prior to being full time in business was I spent 2 years as a guidance counselor. And when you spend that time around children, you see their needs. And it's very difficult to be involved in that job and not walk away change because you see firsthand the things that they are experiencing, the trauma, all of the different things. You also see the brightness of their mind. So that's part of why I targeted children with that particular project, as well as I grew up with a mother who is a kindergarten principal. So I've always had this little extra love for children and young people, as
Yeah.
well as my experience as a teenager. I always say if I had somebody to grab hold of me, and then when people did grab hold of me, it changed the trajectory of my life. So
Yes.
that is one of the reasons why I went after particularly secondary school students because it's such a crucial age. Now, the name the Yellow Paper Project, um, I own a business. So my first business is actually called Promise Jazz by Kell. And so it's a product that is designed to help people remain encouraged and inspired in their everyday walk. The funny story behind it is so the colors within the jar are red, orange, blue, and green. And every time I buy this pack of paper, they'll always just have a color I don't need, which was yellow. And
Okay.
so I would just have hundreds of extra yellow paper just lying around for no reason because it's not a part of my branding. I remember one day I was putting away the yellow paper and I immediately heard the voice of God say, I needed to shelf the name yellow paper because I'm going to come back to teach you a lesson about it. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
that's kind of weird. 2 years passed and a teacher from St. Joseph Convent had a meeting with me. She said, Kell, this is the issue that is going on with my children. And then God said, you remember that yellow paper project I tell you about? Let's talk about it. And so he showed me where yellow is a color that signifies youthfulness, vibrancy, energy, and excitement. Paper is traditionally a symbol of learning. It is a symbol of a blank slate that you get to tell the story. And so he said, what I want you to do is I need you to write on those children who are the yellow paper. I need you to start now teaching them what it looks like to have a whole of their emotions and their values so that they have a better start than you, and hence the reason the Yellow Paper Project. So it really is all about equipping children with the emotional tools to shape their future. And so that's why I call it the Yellow Paper Project. They're blank canvases, bright and energetic and youthful. And we have a responsibility as adults to change their lives by giving them something we didn't have.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow. Who would have thought two simple words, yellow paper, would mean so much?
I'm
And
telling you.
you are right. The secondary students are at that crucial stage where they, identity crisis. They don't know who they are. And targeting them is really where we need to be at so that when
Yeah,
they grow up, they could be better products of society.
correct.
Um, when it comes to empowering students, many secondary students we know struggle with managing emotions. How does the Yellow Paper Project help them to develop emotional intelligence skills?
Well, first off, when you're dealing with children, please always remember that your first approach needs to be very practical and engaging.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I go into school having this grand plan of activities and all of these different things, and I've learned where is sometimes sitting with these children and hearing them out. I realize over especially the past year, we are not listening to our children. And the
Mm.
first step in helping them regulate is hearing actually how they are processing and seeing things. And you realize some of them are not bad behaved. They just are not being given the time of day. So when I go into spaces, I start off by being a sounding board. Let me hear unfiltered exactly what it is going on in your head. And then what I help them do is actually put word or verbiage to exactly what it is that they're experiencing. And then from that point, then I can teach them what is the right from wrong. Sometimes we correct children on things they're not actually even experiencing because we're not getting to the heart of the problem. So it always has to start at the point of I foster some type of relationship where you feel safe. And then from there, I redirect. We can't always be so quick to correct sometimes nothing is broken, they just have no direction. And so I do activities that redirect their emotions, give them words that you're not angry, you're feeling rejected. But I have to be a good listener in order to pick up on something like that. So a lot of times a whole session could look like if we playing a game. And at the end of it is because we just literally unpack how you might be feeling about the situation.
Yeah.
One of the greatest tools that I constantly have to show them is learning to pause and process something, because they are the category that triggers easily. So I've had to teach them by us now discussing and being able to recognize what's going on in your head, learn to pause,
Hmm.
process it based on this new lens, give you better verbiage, give you more options on how to express, so that now that I have paused, I've processed, I can now dictate how that outcome looks. So with children, you really have to learn to slow your pace, be willing to get into their face, and then redirect and not just correct. Some of them need correction, but for the hard
Yes.
part, a lot of redirection has to take place.
Wow.
Awesome. And one more question before I hand you over to Andy.
Mhm.
In the school setting, we know that a lot of times they focus on the academics,
Yeah.
right? And they may not see emotional intelligence as being something crucial. Yes, that school invited you and you did it, but what are some challenges you face in terms of reaching the school and given the teachers giving you that time to put it into the curriculum for you to do that yellow project, paper
I
project?
So the truth of it is I've not had challenges, because if you bring me in, you're
Yeah.
already at a different level
Hmm.
in thinking. So I have to admit I've not had any pushback from certain schools.
Yeah.
From the schools that I work with, because they are already at the point where water is flow more than water. And at
Right.
this
Yeah.
point, we try all our traditional route. This is not working. And so at this point, by the time I come in, it's because they're already at a place where no,
Yeah.
we need the help. So I'll be lying, and I don't want to do that if I said I've faced any challenges with teachers. I just have to tell some people, no, listen, give them a chance. We need to come up with another way to fastly or quickly roll this out. And I
Yeah.
always encourage them to go to student support service, because as somebody who has worked with student support, I know that they are equipped. But sometimes the struggle that they have is that a lot of the children see their guidance counselor, their social worker, as a part of their staff. So it's
Yeah.
a little harder for them to open up versus Auntie Kell, which is what they call me a lot of times when I go into schools. She's an outsider. When she leaves. Which is why sometimes even my old colleagues bring me back into their schools, so that they, as an outside face that could deal with some of the things that their children might be giving them trouble to. But I always try to direct teachers, if you can, talk to your social worker, talk to your student, your guidance counselor, talk to your special ed teacher, because they are absolutely and completely equipped.
Yeah.
Their hands might be a little tight sometimes because of all the different loops they have to jump through, but they're more than equipped.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you
Mm.
so much for sharing that,
Yeah.
Andy.
Oh, thank you, Gabriella.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you, Kelline, for just ringing it out. Value after value. Gracie Vincent says, Amen. Bang, bang, sis. We love you, Gracie. Thank you for your comment. I'm sure Kelline appreciates it as well. I'm
Absolutely.
looking at emotional intelligence, and you have given us the benefit of so many different dimensions of emotional intelligence. And I'm looking at the balance of an individual who is a professional, a
Mm-hmm.
CEO of a company, and at the same time needs to be a dad.
Mm,
Is there a point where they have to learn to balance that emotion to make the switch? When they are home, they are not a CEO, and when they are at work, they are not a dad.
mm. So I was going to say absolutely there needs to be a switch. But really it's not really a switch, you know. It
Mm.
really is just knowing,
Mm-hmm.
being your authentic self. Because so for example, as CEO, your main objective is to drive the productivity of your staff, right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, that's what CEO is responsible for.
Right.
Productivity. If your role as a father is to ensure your household is running smoothly, that you get the optimal outcome from this child. Those are the
Hmm.
two exact same things
Yeah.
in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, of course, there is some nuances when you're dealing with a child, but it's the same concept and the same spirit that you're dealing with. I want to make sure that I am connecting with my staff. Now, of course, my language is going to be different because they are older. I'm not going to walk into work and be like, hi, darling, hi, love. No, confused or like that. But it's
Yeah.
the same kindness, it's the same empathy that I have to show when I walk into those spaces. It's the same way that as a father, I am going to have to
Mhm.
implement that. It's the same way a CEO is going to have to redirect or correct a staff. It's the same way that a parent has to do it. The major difference really is going to be in the way it's communicated, but it should never be a complete switch in who you are as an individual. And I
Yeah.
can say that because I've seen it through my daddy. So my father is in charge of his organization, but
Right.
he's also my daddy. But
Yes.
I've had the evidence of seeing him work with his staff and be like, that is the exact same way that he would deal with me. When I
Yes.
am home, the
Yes.
language is a little different, but the character remains the same. There should never be a switch. It should never be that in work anybody thinks that you are harsh or you might be this. At home, you have cute and cuddly. You have to be leveled in how you deal with people, but of course, you learn to float into your different spaces appropriately.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Wonderful. I absolutely totally agree. And I just love your take on it because that main characteristics that defines the individual, that should never shift.
no,
Because if that happens, then you're not being your authentic self.
that's right.
So it's important to maintain your authentic self, but just know when to change gears with regards to the amount of empathy, tenderness, whatever it is you need to display in the moment. I got it. So tell us about how people can get a copy of your book. Do a little bit promotion now.
So we are currently out of stock. um, but so we did so I have my product in a store called Personalized TT, which is on the corner of French and Robert Street in Port of Spain. So if you want to get a copy like that, it
Hmm.
is easy to walk in, but I was just informed that it was sold out. So you can pre-order it through me, which is a very simple process. You can send me an email at Kelline Theophille Coaching at Gmail or on my social media handles. I have to admit, as a millennial, it's much easier to reach me on social media than anything else. So simply go down to my Instagram page or my Facebook page and sending me a message saying, hey, Kel, I would like to pre-order your books. I do it by pre-orders because it's worth it, but it's unfortunately sold out in stores.
And that's a good thing. That's a good
Of
thing.
course, it's forever
Yes.
grateful.
What is the future? And okay, on cue. There it is, folks. Enough is enough. Don't you dare back down.
Wow.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what does the future look like for Kelline Theophille? What are your plans to increase the level of commitment that you currently have in terms of the space that you are in with regards to your core competencies?
So right now I am at a place where I know that God is leading me in the direction of having actual in-person events.
Hmm.
It's something I've shied away from simply because I currently feel as though I am at capacity.
Yeah.
But then that's a feeling, right? And I understand why I am heading in that direction simply because I know that there are more people who I need to get my hands on. And one of
Hmm.
the ways that God has been showing me to do that is by now creating a safe place. So I actually have my first in-person event on the 31st of May. And that's a big deal. It's a huge, huge
Yeah.
deal
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
for me to now actually create that space. In the future, I have actually recently been a part of a community that launched a third aspect of my business called Activate Academy. And what it basically is, it is a school of emotional intelligence and leadership training where persons who want to actually get the practical skills again, not just an emotional intelligence. So I've partnered with someone who's also certified as a John Maxwell coach. And so when you come to the academy, you have semesters where you get to go through the paces of choosing what course that you want to do to help develop your leadership style, develop your emotional intelligence skills. And the reason we started Activate Academy is because we go to good conferences, we hear all this information, but then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The entire
Yeah.
purpose of it is to treat it like a school, so that when people want to enroll, we have our semesters and we do things like that. You are actually equipped practically, um, in a classroom type group setting. It is online, so that when we send you out there, that you're properly equipped. Now it is, I have to admit, specifically for an age range, and that age range is at 18 to 35
Mm-hmm.
age range. Yeah, so we still rolling it out. We have a pre-launch event coming up. So yeah, so that is what the future has in store for me. I know I have to get those in-person sessions going on, and then Activate Academy is a big part of it. While at the same time, all of that is lovely, but my main focus as well right now is growing my family with my husband. At the end of
Wow.
the day, it really don't matter what is going on. My main priority
Yes.
Family.
Yes.
is my family unit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. That is really, really, really nice. So thank you for sharing, Kelline. I will now give you another 3 minutes or so with Gabriella as we seek to wrap up. It has been quite engaging and informative.
Yes. Yes. So, Kalien, if you could put on a billboard in every city, in every village, one message to inspire people, what would it be? And what would you
Yes.
Don't
say?
settle for surviving. Aim to thrive.
Yes.
I
And you
will
went into
scream it on the
detail.
top of my lungs. Stop
Yeah.
settling for surviving. Aim to
Yeah.
thrive,
Yeah.
please.
Yes. 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 Always seek to take it to the next level, right?
Yes, always. We have so
Yeah.
much in store and in us. Why not tap into it?
Yes.
Wow.
And if you could give the audience a 24-hour emotional intelligence challenge to
Mhm.
improve the emotional intelligence, what would it be?
Interesting enough, you're going to find it's a weird activity, but let me tell you what has been working
Yeah.
really well. I want you to sit and decide for the day. So this is the first thing you do after your devotions and all of that. I want you to spend 10 minutes writing down what you want to think about for the day. So hear what I say, what you actually want to think about. It feels weird. The reason you're doing that is you're going to notice throughout the day how much time your thoughts divert and how much that impacts your mood. What I want you to do is every time you realize that you shifted from your commitment to think about this certain thing, pull out the list and read it. The reason for that is because it's very difficult to stay in a mood or emotion if you've redirected and given it different attention. And so for 24 hours, I do this activity with clients, write down what you want to think about. And anytime that starts to stray, you have to be so aware of yourself or what's going on in your head. You have to come right back. Now make sure and flesh it out. If you say I want to think about growing my business, how you occupy yourself whole day is what would it look like if I expand this way? Wow, name it. And so you realize you just give yourself imagination, right? You have no room to go into a bad mood. You have no room to slip into anything else when you've given your mind an actual purpose and focus. So that is actually what I would give people for 24 hours to do. Do it and see. Now it's a very difficult activity because we don't realize how much our mind strays and how that strain impacts the way we feel. So I always say if you want to tackle your emotions, tackle your mind. And that's where it's at. So that is why I would give what seems to be an unconventional activity to help with emotional intelligence.
And
Yep.
that's so powerful. Eh? I'm thinking about it and I'm like, wow, writing down your thoughts. And you know, that is you giving yourself that power not to let the enemy come in and slip you into, you
Exactly.
know. And you know, with our season being breaking out of depression, you know, when people go into that space where they in the thoughts and they start to stray and they think about, oh God, I want to die, I want to kill myself, and you know, you allow yourself to divert, If you occupy your mind with positive things and you really flesh out what you want to think about throughout the day, then you give no room for anxiety, you don't give no room for
It,
anger, you don't give no room for depression, and you
that's right.
feed your mind. So it is a rewiring, and it's going to take all of your energy and time, but it is doable.
I
So I
want
love
to
it.
say this one thing though, because so even though my business isn't deemed a Christian business, at the core of who I am, it will always seep out. You understand?
Yeah.
So I like to tell people, so you see how I give it up activity? I want people to sometimes have the eyes to see behind it. The Bible says to take every thought captive
Yeah,
and bring it under subjection to the power of God, right? To the
that's
power
right.
of God.
That's right.
And then right after that, he says, well, in a different book, he says, renew your mind daily. But then he jumps and he says, let me show you how to do it. And then he says in Philippians 4:8, he says, think on which is pure and
Mm,
lovely and of a good report. He literally gave us the blueprint. So that is why
that's
I say
right.
to write down your thoughts. And so
Yeah.
when I have clients who don't have anything to think about, I give them those 8 words. And for the entire day, you have to write down things that are excellent, things that have a good report, things that are honorable. So that's what is scriptural. So you
Yeah.
can't fight me if you think the activity will work because it's in the Bible. If you're the one, but you can't fight what Apostle Paul said. He said
Yes.
what he said and he meant it. You understand?
Yes.
Awesome. Wow.
Okay, okay. So we have come to the end of this amazing episode. I just want to have the thought of the week be read out one more time. We'd ask Kelline to hold on for 2 minutes as we wrap up, and we will have a brief discussion. Thought of the week. We are the sum total of our thoughts and values, and yet many of us are not happy with who we really are. And then this lady likes to save her best for last always. Bernadine S. Woods, good night. Great program. I will make my list in the morning. Very interesting and informative. Thanks so much. I've learned so much. To God be the glory. Amen and amen. On that note, people, we have come to the end of this episode of Breaking Out of Depression with our guest, Kelline Theophille, the team, the power of emotional intelligence. And NFIP says, was late, but I like what I heard. Thank you so much, NFIPs. And thank you so much for all your commitment and your support and all your thoughts and your comments. Continue to tune in. And for those who will have this program later on as it streams, remember to help us to continue to produce this information and to support, like our work on Facebook, like our program on YouTube, subscribe, and tell someone about breaking out of depression. And all that you do, always remember to continue to do everything you can to continue to break out of depression. So, bye for now. Until next time. Take care. We love you.
There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. Trouble in my way, but daily hear me say, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way. The harvest is plenty, Lord, but the workers are so few. Ain't got no way.